Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I still remember the first time I realized something had shifted between us. Not just shifted, but cracked, like a hairline fracture that only widens with time. It wasn't one big fight, one betrayal. No, it was quieter than that. More corrosive, like acid dripping slowly onto metal. It started with the small things. The way she laughed louder at other people's jokes than mine. How she'd correct me in conversations. Tiny mistakes I supposedly made. Things no one would have noticed if she hadn't pointed them out. I'd bring up a topic at dinner, and she'd cut in. Actually, that's not quite right. And then she'd give the real version, looking around the table as if to say, see what I put up with? And I put up with it. At first, the real gut punch came one night at a friend's birthday brunch. One of those loud, mimosa-drenched afternoons where half the people pretend to like each other. I didn't want to be there, but she insisted. It'll be good for your social battery, she said with that mocking half-smile. We were gathered around this ridiculously long table at a rooftop restaurant. I was sitting across from her, picking at my food, when someone raised a toast to all the couples in the group. Here's to our other halves, they said. That's when she leaned in with this smirk and said loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, in our marriage, I'm the real reward. He just tagged along for the perks. Laughter. Her friends howled. Some nodded like it was true. And me? I just sat there, trying to laugh it off, pretending like I hadn't just been backhanded in front of 10 people. That phrase stuck to me like wet cement. I'm the real reward. You'd think she was joking, right? But she wasn't. She didn't say it to be funny. She said it like she believed it, like I was just lucky to wake up next to her every day. Lucky she hadn't traded up. Lucky she still let me breathe in her curated, condescending air. And the worst part? No one blinked. It was just normal now. I was the husband who existed to be the punchline. I didn't say a word that day. Not at the table, not in the car, not when we got home. I just nodded along to her stories about the brunch like nothing happened. Because if I reacted, if I showed I cared, it would only fuel the fire. That's how she operated. She didn't argue. She dismissed. She laughed, but inside, something cracked open. Not rage, not heartbreak, something colder, more surgical. That week, she made another jab while we were getting ready for bed. I had just finished brushing my teeth and came into the bedroom with her tea, something I did every night out of habit, even though she never thanked me for it anymore. She took the cup, didn't even look up from her phone, and said, "You know what the problem is, babe? You're just too easy to keep. You never give me a reason to chase you." I stared at her, hair in rollers, face mask on, eyes glued to some influencer on Instagram, so confident in her throne. She wasn't talking to me. She was narrating her life, and I was the placeholder standing in for the audience. She thought I was lucky, but she never once asked herself what it would feel like if I stopped seeing her as the prize and started seeing myself as one. That night, I didn't sleep much. I laid there listening to her soft breathing beside me, wondering how long it had been since she really saw me. Not the version she'd sculpted in her head, the doting husband, the ATM, the guy who existed to nod, fetch, provide. But me. I remembered the version of myself before we met. I wasn't perfect, but I had drive, confidence, goals. Somewhere along the way, I gave her the wheel, and she forgot I ever knew how to drive. The irony? I wasn't the one who needed to be chased. I had been standing still this whole time, waiting for her to catch up to who I actually was. And when she didn't, well, that's when I decided the chase was over. She didn't notice the shift at first. That's the thing about people like her. They're so sure of their position, so convinced of their permanence, that they can't even see when the ground underneath them starts to move. The morning after that, "You're too easy to keep" comment, I didn't react. I didn't argue or retreat like usual. I simply said, noted, and left for work early without our usual half-hearted goodbye. I didn't do it to punish her. It wasn't about revenge. It was something deeper, something internal. A decision. I had given her years of devotion, patience, support. I'd built our life with bricks she never even knew I laid. And I was done asking her to see it. That weekend, I dug out my old running shoes from the back of the closet. They were still dusty, still tucked behind her mountain of designer heels. I laced them up like they were armor and hit the pavement for the first time in years. I started with 2 miles, then 4. By the end of the week, I was up to 6 before breakfast. She barely noticed the change, too distracted by her latest obsession with manifesting abundance and buying crystals from influencers who lived in Bali. When I got home from a run one evening, she glanced at me and said, "Huh, you've lost weight." Like I'd finally shaved off a layer of irrelevance. I just nodded, walked past her, and didn't stop in the kitchen to make her tea that night. The next week, I shaved the beard she always claimed made me look distinguished. She liked that beard because it softened me, made me look older, gentler, less threatening. Without it, I looked younger, sharper, more me. Again, she noticed, but not in the way you'd expect. "Did something happen at work?" she asked casually. "No," I said. "Just felt like seeing myself again." That one caught her. I saw it in the way her eyebrows dipped, the way she paused for half a second before going back to her phone. I could see the confusion starting to creep in, just beneath the smug surface. Like a queen who hears whispers of a rebellion but dismisses them as rumors. Over the next month, I took it further. I stopped asking her if she needed anything when I went grocery shopping. I started cooking for one. When she came home late without explanation, I didn't ask where she'd been. When she asked if I wanted to watch a show together, I told her I had other plans. Which I did, plans that didn't include sitting silently next to someone who only turned her head when the remote needed passing. I wasn't being cruel. I was just stepping out of the role she cast me in. And others noticed. A woman at the gym, someone I used to see in passing but never acknowledged, struck up a conversation about music when she caught me singing under my breath. A cashier at the corner shop commented on my cologne, said I smelled put together. I hadn't changed it, she had just stopped noticing. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't that I had faded. It was that she had stopped looking. One evening, we were getting ready for a charity dinner she dragged me to. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, not realizing I'd been fully dressed for 10 minutes already. Without turning, she said, "Make sure you wear the jacket with the blue lining. It brings out your eyes. Don't make me look like I'm babysitting tonight." I looked at her through the mirror. She wasn't even facing me, and yet she felt confident enough to speak about me, not to me, like I was a prop in her evening ensemble. I took a slow breath and said, "You're mistaken." She turned. "About what?" "I'm not here to accessorize you." For the first time in months, she had no immediate comeback. No sarcastic laugh. Just silence. I picked a different jacket, black, no lining, and left without saying another word. Later that night, at the event, something shifted. She clung to my arm a little tighter when we entered the venue. She introduced me to her colleagues with the kind of sugary sweetness that was a bit overcompensating. I played the part but didn't feed into it. And I saw the glances she shot me during the evening, like she was trying to figure something out. Afterward, in the car, she turned to me and said, "You're different lately. More confident." I didn't look at her. I just said, "Maybe I've remembered who I was before you convinced me I wasn't enough." She didn't respond. She turned to look out the window like she was watching the road, but I knew what she was really trying to see was what was slipping away. The woman who once believed she was the reward had no idea the man standing beside her had stopped playing the game. And the best part? She still thought she was winning. There's something fascinating about the moment someone starts to feel the consequences of their own arrogance. You can almost see the gears turn, the panic hidden just behind their eyes, even when their lips keep smiling like nothing's wrong. She hadn't asked me where I was going in weeks. But then came a Saturday night. I came downstairs in a dark button-down, slim-fit jeans, in the same cologne she once said made me smell like temptation. She was sitting on the couch in her robe, hair tied up, scrolling through vacation villas she'd never book. Her eyes flicked up when she saw me, lingered a second too long. "Where are you headed?" she asked, too casually. "Out." "With who?" "Friends." She tilted her head slightly. "You didn't mention anything. I didn't think you'd care." I left before she could respond. No kiss on the cheek. No explanation. No guilt. I wasn't meeting anyone. I drove to a cafe I liked, ordered black coffee, and read for 2 hours. That was it. But what mattered wasn't where I went. It was how little power she had in keeping me. When I came home, she was still on the couch. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. She didn't say a word, just glanced at me with something unfamiliar in her expression. Worry? Jealousy? Or worse, realization? In the days that followed, I saw her trying to reconnect. Her tone softened. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie, suggested ordering food from my favorite place. At one point, she even reached for my hand while we were walking in the parking lot after groceries. I didn't pull away, but I didn't close my fingers around hers either. That half-hold said more than silence. And then it happened. One night, just before bed, she stood at the doorway of our bedroom wearing a silk robe I hadn't seen in months. The kind she used to pull out on our anniversaries. "I've been thinking," she said. "Maybe we've been distant." I didn't respond. Just folded my clothes neatly at the edge of the bed. She walked over, sat beside me, and gently placed her hand on my thigh. "I miss this," she said. "This?" I asked. "You. Us." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing. No heat. No ache. No hunger. Just a quiet, clear detachment. I stood up, walked to the bathroom, and closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't say anything cruel. I just let the silence answer her. That's when the questions began. The next morning, she asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because you're different. Distant." I didn't lie. I didn't confess either. I simply said, "You're just not used to seeing me value myself." Later that week, I noticed her checking my phone, not subtly either. I let her. There was nothing to find. No secret messages. No lipstick-stained texts. Just a man who had stopped chasing and started walking his own path. But to her, that was worse than cheating, because it meant I wasn't trying to win her anymore. One evening, she stormed into my office while I was reading. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just done?" I looked up slowly. "I'm not done. I'm just done fighting for someone who thinks they're a prize I should be grateful for." She blinked. "You used to say I was the best thing that ever happened to you." "You were," I said, "until I remembered I existed before you. And I liked who I was." She didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. For now, she just stood there, rooted in place, as if she'd stepped into the outline of her own worst nightmare and realized it fit. She thought love was something to be given to her, admiration to be expected, worship to be received. But now she was alone in a game she thought she was winning, and the opponent was no longer playing. There's a peculiar kind of silence that follows a shift in power. It's not loud or angry, it's still, focused. Like the way the air holds its breath just before a thunderclap. That's where we were. She hadn't made another pass at intimacy since the robe incident. But she hovered, asked if I needed anything when I got home, started commenting on my clothes again, as if noticing how I'd stopped dressing for her and started dressing for myself made her nervous. She even cooked dinner 3 nights in a row. The kind of meal she used to make back when we still laughed together. But now the meals were quiet. Awkward. Like she was serving peace offerings without understanding what the war had been about in the first place. It all came to a head at a company cocktail party. She'd been begging me to attend for weeks, her firm's quarterly mixer, full of polished small talk, fake laughter, and men who measured each other by watch brands and mortgage numbers. I hated those events. But this time, I agreed. I wore a tailored gray jacket, no tie, top button undone. She did a double take when I walked out of the bedroom. "You look sharp," she said, almost cautiously. "Thanks," I replied, like it came from a stranger. At the party, I watched her slip into hostess mode. Confident. Smooth. Showing me off like a trophy again, like the cracks never happened. She wrapped her arm through mine, introduced me to partners, complimented my supportiveness, my patience, my dedication, each word a notch back toward control. She was reclaiming the narrative, until she overplayed her hand. She was 3 glasses of wine, and when we reached a circle of younger colleagues, men and women maybe 5, 10 years our junior, trying to be relatable, she leaned into her old routine. "Oh, he's a saint," she said with a breathy laugh. "Honestly, if I came home with a wild idea to move to Peru and become a llama whisperer, he'd just pack the bags and say, 'How many llamas?'" They laughed. She wasn't done. "I always say I'm the real reward in this marriage. He just got lucky." That old line. Again. Except this time, it didn't land. The laughter was tight. One guy cleared his throat and turned away. Another woman, a newer hire, gave me a glance. Not pitying. Curious. Almost confused, like she couldn't square what she saw in me with what my wife just said. That's when I spoke. I looked around the group, smiled faintly, and said, "Funny. I used to believe that too." Dead silence. You could hear the ice clinking in someone's glass. Her grip on my arm faltered for just a second. Then I added, "But lately, I've been thinking maybe she got lucky too." A pause. Just long enough for it to sting. Just short enough for it to sound civil. Then I turned to the new hire and asked her a question about a project I knew she'd worked on. Completely shifted the attention. The circle followed. My wife stood there smiling, frozen in place, laughing half-heartedly as she tried to catch up to the conversation she was no longer leading. Later that night, on the drive home, she said nothing. Just stared out the window, arms crossed tightly over her chest like she was holding something in. Probably disbelief. Or fear. Back at the house, she shut the door behind her with a little too much force. Followed me into the kitchen. Did you have to embarrass me like that? I turned slowly. I didn't embarrass you. You just finally heard how it sounds when you talk about me like I'm furniture. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped past her, opened the fridge, and poured myself a glass of water. Took a slow sip. Set it down. You wanted to remind them you were the prize, I said without looking at her. I just let them know I stopped playing that game. She didn't sleep in our bed that night. Or maybe she did. I wouldn't know. I never went up. I stayed downstairs on the couch, not because I was angry, but because I knew it would say more than any fight ever could. And in the silence of that house, she finally understood what it felt like to be the one wondering, to be the one chasing. And for the first time since we met, I was just out of reach. She waited 2 days before saying anything. I think she assumed I'd come to her first, like always. That I'd be the one to clear the air, to ask her how she was feeling, to hand her the power back because the silence was too heavy to carry alone. But not this time. She found me in the garage on a Saturday morning, organizing the workbench I hadn't touched in months. I'd forgotten how therapeutic it was, putting things in order. Tools where they belong. Everything with a purpose again. She stood there in the doorway for a full minute before speaking. You're slipping away, she said. I didn't stop what I was doing. Am I? Her voice cracked. I don't know what's happening to us. Now I turned to face her. She wasn't wearing any makeup. Her hair was tied back the way it used to be when we first got married, before she curated herself into someone the world envied more than I recognized. You said you were the reward in this marriage, I said quietly. You were wrong. We both were. Tears welled in her eyes. That used to mean something to me. Now it just meant she realized she'd gone too far to pull me back. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. But you did, I replied. A pause. Then she asked, can we fix this? I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked, at the cracks behind her pride, the regret she couldn't dress up, the woman who thought she'd never have to chase what she thought she'd already won. Then I said, I'm not angry anymore. Her face flickered. Hope. I'm just not interested in going backwards. She cried. Full, silent tears this time. No performance. No audience. I walked past her, gently set the wrench on the counter, and headed back inside. That night, I didn't sleep on the couch. But I didn't sleep next to her either. And that was how it ended. She didn't beg. I didn't yell. We simply unraveled. Slowly. Quietly. Permanently. But there was another path I could have taken. If I had reacted differently that night after the party, if I had taken her bait, snapped in front of everyone, made a scene, she would have painted me as the unstable one. The guy who couldn't take a joke. She'd have played the victim, said I embarrassed her, guilt me back into submission with crocodile tears and whispered apologies. And I would have caved. We'd have shared one last messy night of performative intimacy, and I would have told myself it meant something. But she wouldn't change. She never would have needed to. And I'd still be the man sitting on the couch, waiting for her to hand me my worth like a prize. I've often imagined a different outcome, one where I leaned into my own evolution even harder, maybe even walked away entirely. Left the house with a packed duffel, handed her the keys, and let her watch me go. No grand speech. Just a note on the nightstand. You thought I was chasing you. Turns out, I was only chasing who you used to be. I'm done now. Maybe in that version, she'd fall apart. Maybe she'd never recover. Or maybe she'd move on like nothing happened, convincing the next man that she was the reward too. But that man wouldn't be me. Not ever again.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.